Hello everyone, it's Camille Fitoussi, professional coach for Co-Perspective Agency, and we have a new friend today. His name Akshat Rajan, and he's his coach, and he will explain us what he's doing in life, where he's come from, and whatever he want to share. So nice to meet you.
Hello, thank you so much for having me, Camille. My name is Akshat Rajan. I'm from Mumbai, India, and the coaching world came upon me. I didn't find it. It was a very interesting experience. I started doing events. I felt like I wasn't learning too much in school, and so I started organizing TedX events in my high school. I was the youngest TedX organizer in the world at the time.
In the world?
Yes. Oh and it took me many months to get the license and and for TED to trust that I would be capable of putting on a TED-like event.
Okay. How did you do to make them trust you?
They had an Indian ambassador who came to interview me, and me and my friend started it together, and we showed him like the types of people we wanted to invite. We showed him how committed we were to following the rules and the brand guidelines, and they said, okay, we'll give you guys a shot. And after the first event was such a big success, they were very excited to give us the license again. Mm-hmm. And I worked for TED with TED for the 8 years after that. Wow. And I think my favorite part about organizing these events was sitting down one-on-one with speakers who were coming to speak, who all had ideas worth sharing, and sitting down and asking them truly why they did everything they did, and being in that role of coach for them to help them share those ideas with the world, because there are so many people spending so much time doing good but don't have the ability to express themselves and express the work they've done. And so we would look for these unheard voices, and we would give them a platform like TED, which is a prestigious platform, so that their voices do become heard, so that their ideas can get expanded. And I think after some time I stopped caring about the events and just started caring about the coaching, because the same people who I would coach as a volunteer would to say, can you coach me for this, can you coach me for that? And so
for what, for example?
They were giving talks on different platforms like Forbes, like United Nations, like YPO, like Toastmasters. So they were like, could you help us with this talk, could you help us with that speech?
So it was always about speaking.
Yes. It was always about speaking. So I started off as a speaker coach. Okay. So I helped people figure out what to talk about, how to talk about, but almost all the people who were giving speeches were talking about their personal journeys and what they had learned from either their personal or professional journey.
Okay. And do you have like a short example of a story, someone you coach, and what did you do with him or her?
Sure. So there was a copywriter who had a very interesting story. She was having like a quarter life crisis as a copywriter, and said, I can't do this anymore, and she went off to clowning school. So she became a professional clown, and she came back to India, and she went to the US to study clowning and started doing shows, and realized that she embraced her vulnerability and everything that was stopping her. She was able to recognize that through clowning. So we did a really cool talk together where she came onto stage as a clown, and she did a clowning act for 2 or 3 minutes. Wow. After which she took out each like piece of her clowning attire and started becoming more and more human, and like letting that clown go, and then talking about who she used to be before she discovered clowning. Wow. It was one of my favorite talks to have coached and worked with, and
you will give us the link to see that.
100%. Okay. And besides that, I've coached like hackers, I've coached doctors. One of the cool things that happened after our event was that we had a doctor speaking there who did cancer research. So that was a very serious talk, which was followed by the clowning person. Her name was Natasha. And after the talk got over, they both were so inspired from each other that Natasha ended up doing clowning workshops for cancer surviving kids in the hospital where the doctor was doing cancer research, because clowning helps embrace vulnerability. It helps you be in touch with your emotions. When you see someone else being vulnerable, you get the permission to be vulnerable too.
Definitely.
So as it was quite cool as a platform, because all of these people we were coaching were coming together, and I was like, oh, if this person does this and that person does this, they can connect in this way and they can create this. And then when that was actually happening, I was like, wow, that's the real impact, that I feel like those events were creating.
Yes, so meaningful. Cool. And what's happened after?
So I continued coaching until university, where I studied in Boston at Tufts. And that's when I realized that like it was becoming too much about the speech and too little about the self-discovery.
Okay.
Everybody was just wanted a quick fix, like help me figure out my life quickly so that I can give this talk and be done with it.
Mm-hmm.
But I didn't like that process that much anymore, and I just wanted to help people figure out life for life. And figure out life because they had been through so much and they had never sat down and processed it. Yeah. And so I started coaching myself by doing like a lot of spirituality courses, by doing a lot of storytelling courses, and realizing how you can go within and then express. And so now I've developed my own spirituality and storytelling toolkit, which I use as a coach to help people who are in public positions or have public roles, such as CEOs, celebrities, because what ends up happening when you are given a role that's bigger than yourself, you tend to lose yourself. Right? And I think that's a very specific niche in the coaching industry too that I've found, and that I'm excited to have been a part of, because what happens is when someone expects you to think about the company before you think about yourself, or think about your role as an actor before you think about yourself, that individuality is lost, and people need to remain connected to that, because at their core they are artists and they are visionaries. And so if they lose touch with that individuality, they will start living life for others and not for themselves. And so I help people people who have public lives stay connected with that individuality. And yeah, I've worked with the CEO of McDonald's. I've worked with some actors in Bollywood, and bunch of other CEOs and YPO members. And it's been great to help them kind of align professional and personal narratives so that they can just constantly be prepared to talk about themselves confidently, because they're always asked questions, they're always giving talks, they're always giving interviews. So if they have clarity on all the things they've been through, if they have clarity on what they learned from the experiences that they've been through, then they're able to share that better, and they find that that's helped them be more sure of themselves.
Okay. And what's your way to guide them to reconnect with themselves? How do you do that?
So I've come up with a centering technique, because a lot of people always talk about meditation as a way to center, and it is, but I'm of the belief that meditation is something that's super effortless, and anyone who's trying very hard to meditate or trying very hard to make you meditate is doing it wrong, right? And so what we can do with a little effort is centering. Right, we're constantly living outward lives. Even right now we're engaged in conversation that's external. Right, we're walking through a village in India where there's sensory overload. Like we can hear the wildest things. Like maybe you can hear the cows in the background, and the horns in the background, and the kids playing, and the guy cutting the hair, and the music playing. And there's just so much going on all the time that we forget that we actually have that inner voice, and that we're connected to an inner being. And that's what it means to have a relationship with yourself. That's what it means to get answers from your true nature. Because today most people are walking around life trying to make the best decisions, but how are they listening to themselves when they're making these decisions, And so I try in my sessions with people to switch people out of this thinking and doing state that they're in all the time into a feeling and being state. And the way to do that is through centering, through sense-based centering. So there are different exercises that help you center all your senses, whether it's your sight, whether it's your hearing, whether it's your taste, whether it's your touch, whether it's your smell and your breathing. So you use these different exercises to tap into this state. It's almost like a trance-like meditative state. And then you are able to access your memories better. And a lot of that memory work allows you to access that subconscious mind. And from that subconscious mind, we make whatever is happening inactive in your brain, like passively, we make that active. And we make that something that's proactive even, because when you conduct a session with an intention of having something be released from a subconscious mind, when you work through a relationship that's been tough for you, when you work through an incident that was tough for you, but you do it with space held, with someone who knows how to put you into that state and bring you back out of that state, then you see that you're doing the work inside out instead of doing the work outside in, you know. And that change lasts longer. That change, like, I honestly, I'm not of the opinion or of the belief that people should keep coming to me. The most ideal thing that would be the best for my client is that they don't have to ever need me, right? And so if they come to me with an issue, I'm very like, you have very few hours to sort this out. So let's sort this out together, because I'm not trying to have you come to me every single week for the rest of the year. And so these deeper, and I think that's also why I've gotten this certain kind of clientele, because I myself am doing many different things with my life. And so coaching is sort of one-on-one coaching, at least, is on its way out. I'm trying to create more group programs and things like that, and start my own wellness thing. So I feel like when someone does come to me for one-on-one now, they better be ready to have like a very intense couple of hours and have their problems sorted in that amount of time, rather than something that's constant and progressive, you know.
Okay. And yeah, you told me a little bit about your business model last time, like you make it more with group right now.
Yes.
Could you tell us a little bit more about that?
So I think after coaching 100 people one-on-one, I finally kind of figured out and have a little bit more confidence on how this can be better managed for groups. And so I've created my own process for how I think people evolve. And that's not necessarily a hierarchy, it's more circular. So the idea is that we all are here as... One of the biggest switches for me was that we're not human beings trying to master our spiritual selves, as most people think. We're spiritual beings trying to master our human selves. So I'm trying to create programs of where there are... one of the hardest emotions to feel is joy. And it's an emotion...
It's full of joy here in India. Oh my God.
Yeah. And how do we get people to be okay to feel joy? Because the minute you feel joy, what's the first thing you think? Oh my God, why am I happy? Oh my God, the happiness is gonna go.
Sorry for the noise.
Like, oh my God, like, I'm feeling joy, something's about to go wrong.
Yeah.
Right? And so people need to be able to lean in more proportionately into both the positive emotions and the negative emotions. And for that, they don't have a command over the language. On average, people know how to say that they're feeling only 3 emotions. So people can label happiness, people can label sadness, and people can label fear. But what about worry? What about awe? What about wonder? What about trust? What about courage? What about vulnerability? How are people going to know what that feels like if they don't have the language to describe it? So using a lot of positive psychology research, using a lot of research from Brene Brown from the University of Houston, who has spent 20 years studying these emotions. If we can trust a bottled water, we can trust her when it comes to trust, vulnerability, and shame, right? So the idea is that we bring this research into programs that people can experience together, and we make it more digestible, and we put groups together to experience this research and to share experiences, such that they can grow from and learn from each other and be able to label these emotions better, because emotions is 50% what's happening in your body and 50% what you call it, right? So giving people that power so that they are able to identify what's going on with themselves will honestly give them so much more clarity in their lives. And so that's something that can be scalable. You know, the one-on-one coaching isn't scalable. I don't want to be the product anymore. And so I'm trying to create these urban wellness centers where people can come and find community that wants to do this together, where people can come and even engage in there's so much technology now that helps you go into these states. So for example, sensory deprivation tanks, they create an environment for meditation. You don't even have to try. All you have to do is enter one of these tanks and automatically your senses are deprived, and so you start listening to your true nature. So while I don't think that like putting everybody in a sensory deprivation tank is the solution, but I think it's like when you get sick, the doctor gives you medicine, right, for a week, and then you're fine, and then you have to have your natural immunity fight your battles. Similarly, there are things like sensory deprivation tanks where if you try them for a short amount of time and you hack the states you go into when you're put into these devices, you can go on and hack that state whenever you want. You don't need the tank in order to live a meaningful life. It's just that you need to get a taste of it for a bit and then realize that that's a state that you can go into and that's in your control. So my idea is very focused on kind of giving people that agency, giving people that control. In the ancient times, people used to find this control through psychedelics. Psychedelics aren't legal and that's fine, because we can access those states without needing the drugs in the first place, right? So how do we get into those states using science? How do we get into those states using experiential learning? How do we get into those states using community? So that's what I'm trying to build now. And I think that usually wellness spaces have been very lonely. They haven't been community spaces. Self-care is a lonely process. Usually it's like these very expensive wellness resorts that you go into to take care of yourself that are far away from the city, and then you come back to your city, which like perpetuates the fact that you need to run away to become okay. And I want to give solutions to people who are in the arena fighting their battles every single day in the cities, and know that the same way they can go to the gym for their body, they can find a gym for their soul, and a playground for adults, a nursery for adults.
Okay.
But yeah.
Very ambitious, and I love the way you talk about it. Such a good speaker, by the way, of course. And like, do you have a team? When you say we, who is it?
I have a lot of people I've worked with across the spectrum, but now I'm in the process of building a full-time team. So for example, we are trying to create content. So for that, I have a partner who's a co-author, who's writing things out with me. For the physical spaces, I'm looking for people to join me as well. Luckily, my family is helping me with the real estate already, because we're in that industry. So I don't have to worry about the spaces. I just have to worry about turning them over and building that culture and community. Luckily, I'm an influencer as well, so I have an audience that follows me, and hopefully will become like my first target audience, to get them to like experience these things. I've already started hosting meditations and a different kind of activities and group coaching sessions, just so that I keep learning and see how all the dynamics change from an individual to when you go into a group. I think it's easier on the coach because people hold space for each other, and beyond that, I also think it helps more people, so it's a better use of everybody's time, because if I had to just continue working one-on-one, how many more people would I be able to reach, But the minute it becomes groups, you can reach a lot more people, and you can become more confident also about your own learning and progress. I think as a coach, if you ever think that you've learned enough, you no longer can be a coach, because so I have to keep reminding myself that no matter what I've done, I know nothing, I am nothing.
More we learn, more we know that we have so much to learn.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, trying to build the best as I can and do the best as I can, because I'm super passionate about just having communities be alone together, for people to be, what's the point of life if you're not truly experiencing it, I've always found myself being someone that is very connected to themselves since I was a little child, and I almost felt out of place because of that. And I also find that like I come from a family where diseases were very prevalent, and that's why I want to focus on the wellness and the proactive sector, so that if people take care of these things as young adults, then they don't need to face things like, I know this is a stretch, but the idea is that it definitely does reduce taking care of yourself and your mental health and your emotional health definitely reduces the chances for you to get physical diseases after, even if it's in your genetics, whether it's cancer, whether it's heart issues, because the idea is that you are allowing these, because I believe that the diseases are all emotional releases that never happened at a young age, right? And so it's all these built up things that turn into physical issues later in the future. So if you start taking care of yourself emotionally, spiritually from a younger age, you develop that spiritual potential, you increase that emotional intelligence, then you're finally able to, be able to avoid, if not completely avoid, but reduce the chances drastically of these diseases affecting you in the future, because I've seen it in my family, and I most definitely don't want to see it in myself or my children.
I believe in that too. And when you put group together, how do you manage to create like something between the group? Are they the same profile, or how do you decide who is going with whom?
So that's still under construction at the moment, but I think it's super important. Diversity is the most important thing. Diversity in gender, diversity in work, diversity in ethnicity, diversity in ways of thinking, because when you are able to bring a diverse group together, the amount of stretching that happens literally increases, right? Every mind that you bring that's brought in from a different pretext will create a different stretching or broadening of the group's horizons. And I want to believe that the group is as shallow as their shallowest member and as deep as their deepest. And so the idea is to bring people So I would use my model of evolution that I've created that goes from birth to enlightenment to see where, and we do something called a life assessment survey. So there are 20 points where there are 20 dimensions of your life, and we ask you to rate yourself on how well you think you've done on certain points. So to make the groups personalized, we would take that data and then put people together so that they can grow together towards similar things. So if there are people who think that they have not done any work in developing their spiritual potential, for example, or any work in developing their intellectual curiosity, they will be with others who have also not done that kind of work, and so they can grow from each other or learn from each other. But I think I'm yet to build that out into like a actual AI tech that is able to do it. Right now it's quite like I have to do it with my own mind, knowing my own strengths and weaknesses. So yeah, I'm hoping that as we start hosting these groups, we learn and get feedback and continue to be better at putting people together.
Step by step. And are they Indian, or do you target also international people like French, for example? Because I guess some French people will listen to you.
So I have worked with people who aren't Indian before, because when I lived in the US, I worked with people from different cultural and ethnic backgrounds. However, because I'm setting up in Mumbai, I think predominantly my community or my target audience would be young Indians. But there are a lot of, given Mumbai has become more and more of an international city in the last couple of years, I have been seeing myself in my own social circles, so many internationals coming into that network and coming into that that community, that I don't see why this couldn't be a place for them.
Okay, great. And
just because it's a physical space right now and not a digital space yet, I don't see a majority being from there, but it is completely open and would be extremely exciting to bring that diversity into this community.
Yeah, so cool. And how people, why they choose you?
So touch wood, the coaching bit has been word of mouth, and it's always been it's been a personal approach. I have been super invested in the people I've worked with just because I have learned so much from them. I'm a 25-year-old. I've been coaching since I was 15. I didn't even know and honestly, even though people pay me for this, I think I learn more than anybody in the equation, just because I get a front row seat to so many successful people's lives. Today I feel like I walk around with that, with not just my experiences, but hundreds of people's experiences. And so I guess that exposure and that upbringing and my career trajectory and the stuff I've been through has been quite unique. And so people feel like I have lived a life or been used to and seen so many different things happen at such a young age. So they come to me, I guess, for that context. And I think they can see why this is my life's purpose and why this is something I am so passionate to build. So hopefully, that's why people see that, hopefully that answers why me.
Thank you so much for this talk. And before we end it and enjoy the village where we are, do you want to share something, the last word you want to share with people who are listening us?
I think discovering yourself is the best thing you can do in this lifetime, because you're here once, and I hope that, and there's so much out there. You can discover yourself through movements, you can discover yourself through relationships, you can discover yourself through education, you can discover yourself through every family, you can discover yourself in so many ways. But just be more active in that discovery, be more mindful of that discovery, know that you need to put that discovery above, give that discovery priority, and because the more sight through which you can see your own life with your own eyes, the more you will start really ascending and be able to experience so much more the human experience has to offer. So
okay, thank you so much. We will write your contact details on the description, like that people can reach you if they want to. For sure. Thank you for listening us. If you want to help, just write a comment on your favorite platform as Spotify or Apple Podcast. And see you soon. Bye.